Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builders Supply. This video is to bring you a closer look at the Yale. This is their part number 1152. Mortise cylinder is what it is. This is a generic, common type of cylinder. It's called a Mortise cylinder. It is installed into a mortise lock generally, but a mortise cylinder can be installed in lots of things, like exit device trim or, switches to operate access control, a key switch that would literally take a mortise cylinder, alarm bypass types of applications. Aluminum storefront hardware will take that. But generally what you're finding is the use of the term mortise cylinder is that it's installing into a lock that has been worked into the a cavity that has been created in the door itself or in whatever you're installing it into. So you've taken the lock and you've mortised the door itself, inserted the lock cassette into that mortise or that cavity, and you therefore use a mortise cylinder. Versus the term rim cylinder. And a rim cylinder is usually used on locks that are mounted on the perimeter of the door like a night latch. But again, these cylinders, mortise and rim, they can be installed in lots of things. Alarm bypasses, exit device trim, things of that nature. Just yesterday we supplied a client, 20 Medico removable core, or I should say interchangeable core housings that were rim type. The client had ordered mortise type and realized that he has rim exit devices, and the trim literally does not operate on mortise type cylinders, required rim cylinders. So the point of all of that is to say that what we call something is generally a tip-off as to where it's used. The hardware industry is not extremely imaginative when it comes to naming things, but it's very helpful when you need to decide what cylinder to use for a mortise lock. Yeah, it's probably a mortise cylinder. So there you go. Now this is Yale's 1152, very, very typical mortise cylinder. A number of things about this. First of all, it is 1.25 inch length. The 1152 can be ordered in different lengths. This is 1.25 inch. That's a dimension from the edge of the door to the back of the cylinder, including the cam that's back here. Not everyone measures them that way, but practically everyone does. Be mindful. That's how these are measured, from the underside of the head to the back of the cam. Speaking of the cam, that's what we would call a standard cam. It's also known as a Yale cam. I don't know how it really got that name, but my guess is 100 years ago, the 1900s, 1910, 1920, 1930, you would have mortise locks. And those mortise locks would take a cam that is shaped like this. Because Yale was and is such a predominant player in the market, they likely just called it the Yale cam, because that was the cam that would operate their mortise locks that are, early 20th century. Probably late 19th century as well. I'd have to look in the catalogs. So this just has what we would call today a standard cam. Where would you use a standard cam? Yes, really old mortise locks is where you would use a standard cam, but you would also use a standard cam in those exit device trim applications, key switch applications as well. I'll show you the different cams in a moment. This is also in a GB keyway. That is a part of a multiplex system of keyways, the G family of keyways. It is not the standard Yale keyway, the para, which is short for paracentric, or para, would be considered the stock or standard keyway. But obviously this client, this is going to a lock shop, so this client's client obviously has GB installed. Would you order a GB keyway if you weren't matching any other GB material? Probably not, but you could. Why would you? You don't want the standard para keyway. And it's probably going to be that someone who wants to get a copy of the key made is going to actually have to go to a proper locksmith rather than the local big box hardware store to get the key duplicated, because just not everyone will have these blanks, is the bottom line. So you might just be ordering an unusual keyway just simply for a little bit of key control, actually. If you can't get the key blank, you're not going to get the sorry, just adjusting here, you're probably not going to get the key cut very easily. This is also going to include a cylinder collar. Obviously, that's to install like that. The role of the cylinder collar is to not only finish off the installation, because that cylinder will only go so far in, but it's also intended to prevent or restrict access to the head of the cylinder. Okay? When I do that, it covers the head of the cylinder. Why is that important? I can put a pipe wrench on there and I can probably twist that off pretty easily. If I put that cylinder collar over there and put my pipe wrench on it, which I can do, it's going to spin. Okay, so that's why that's like that. Back to the length, you can order these in lots of sizes. I have ordered unusual length mortise cylinders from Yale, 3 1/4 inch. You know, they can probably make them up to 6 inch in length. So be mindful. 1 1/4 is just the size this client ordered. What is 1 1/4 being used for? Yeah, lots of things. It could be used for a mortise lock and a very thick door. You really wouldn't need, even with the cylinder collar, you wouldn't need a cylinder so long for that. This is going to measure about 1 1/8 inch. You know, if you went, if you had 1 3/4 inch thick door and you went from the outside of the door to where you'll install this to the center of that thickness, it's 7/8. Well, this is 1/4 inch longer. You know, your cylinder really needs to be no more than 7/8. You know what I mean? So you wouldn't need one so long. Key switches are very typical, or hardware that doesn't care about the thickness, like exit device trim generally is pretty tolerant, or exit device trim will actually call out for 1 1/4 inch length, even though you could probably use one shorter. But if you're getting into work where you have a lock set installed in a door, hollow metal door, wood door, aluminum storefront, you do need to be mindful of how thick that is. Now, you know, another reason you might be using 1 1/4 inch is because you have an unusual door thickness. You know, if you had a door that was, 2 1/4 inch thick, I would say this would be perfect, because you had that 1 1/8 inch, 1 1/8 times 2. 1 1/8 is getting you to the center of the thickness. I like to keep that shy of about 1/16 of an inch. You could also have an unusual door thickness where the lock is no longer centered in the thickness of the door itself. We do that often, where you have 1 3/4 inch thick door, but then they're applying 1/2 inch of something on the outside. Stonework, trim, woodwork, whatever it might be, that's affecting the overall, thickness of the door, even though it's 1 3/4 inch thick door. And you have to take that into account when you're supplying your hardware. And if you're doing an application like that, depending on whether it's a left or a right hand swing, or a left hand reverse or a right hand reverse, you're going to have to think about longer spindles, longer screws, possibly an extended lip strike, if it is a reverse bevel swing in that situation where you're applying something to the secured side of the door. Okay, let's switch to the screen view now, and let's take a closer look at some supporting information. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. Here is the item that we are looking at, and let's take a look at some photographs that we have linked to down below as well. So that's the box. That's what's in the box. The only thing I wish they included was a wave washer. I believe that part number for a wave washer from Yale is a KP3. We'll take a look at that in a moment. It's odd that they don't include a wave washer. That allows the cylinder to kind of compress and keep the collar tight against the face of the door. 2 original keys, your cylinder, a variety of different views of the cylinder, a close-up of the GB keyway. Very interesting details that are shown here to the trained observer. Side view. That's 1 5/32 diameter, 32 threads per inch. That is a standard for this type of mortise cylinder. There are a total of 4 different types of mortise cylinders that I'm aware of. The 3/4 peanut, the 1 5/32 standard, the 1.5 inch, what we would call a jumbo or a master ring, and then the 2 inch mogul. The mogul is used in detention work. Showing our standard or Yale cam, just held in with 2 screws. That's a 440 or a 348 thread. I forget what that is. That's a near useless piece of information. There's your trim ring, and there are your keys. I don't have it shown. Yeah, right here I'm sorry it's not clear. Right underneath here it's stamped GB, which is possibly handy to know. I would prefer it not be stamped, and if I was ordering this for myself, I would ask the factory to not stamp GB on there. I don't want to tip the person who might be looking to duplicate my key. They know it's Yale. That round head is very classically Yale. GB tells you exactly what it is. You could measure the length of the blade to know how many pins this is. This is 6 pin, by the way. I should have mentioned that. So our extended description, it's available in different finishes. Keyway is GB, 6 pin. Standard cylinder, except for 1-inch throw deadbolts. I'm not sure what they're referring to with that. This is a Mortise cylinder that is used in lots of applications. It can be used in the modern 8000 series Mortise locks, and you will have a client. If you're in an older city, Chicago, New York, you're going to have a client that will have a really, really old Mortise lock, and it's made of cast iron, that lock body, and it may or may not have an applied armor front either. It might just be a solid face. You're likely going to be looking at a Yale lock body there. Now there are some cut sheets down below. First is the key section. It's a single-page document that talks about the different keyways, and I won't get into reading that, but you can review that. But enough to show you that it's part of this. The GB is part of this extremely large multiplex system. It's in this G family that's here, GA, GH, GB, and so on and so forth. And what you're looking at here is 8 keyways, GA through GF, GB is one of them, that make up what is called a multiplex system, meaning you'll have 8 different broachings and cylinders. That means you can have 8 different keyways and locks. This GAH is what we would call a multi-section key blank. It's only a key blank. It's special because it will pass both of these broachings in these cylinders, GA and GH. The GMK, it's a poor thing to acronym to use for this all section blank. I would have called it something else. This key blank would pass all 8 of these cylinders. Why would you need to know that? Well, it explains why this chart is here, but also if you had a 2-story building or a 4-story building or a 6-story building or whatever, you could have the GA keyway on the first floor and the GH keyway on the second floor. The keys from the first floor won't enter the cylinders on the second floor and vice versa. The maintenance individual can walk around with the GAH key blank and operate all cylinders on both floors. Let's say the owner has 5 buildings. They could walk around. Let's say the owner has 4 buildings, 4 2-story buildings. Building 1, building 2, 3, and 4. The owner can walk around with a all section blank and go to all of the cylinders. That is a pasteurized explanation as to how that may work, and then your imagination can fill in how there would be other ways that you can implement a multi-section key blank. The other reason is because let's say you have 5,000 doors. You can't get enough key changes out of a 6-pin GA keyway, but you can take that bitting list, duplicate it on the GH section, and have the GAH multi-section blank operate everything. That gets into the theory and principles of master keying, but that's another reason that different keyways are used in a multiplex system. Now there's also the cut sheet, and the cut sheet it's a 2-page document. I'm not looking at it, but here are the 2 pages. The 1152 standard Mortise cylinder for cast iron, for obsolete cast iron Mortise locks. Standard cylinder for obsolete cast iron Mortise locks. Sure, absolutely. It happens to be an 1.25-inch Mortise cylinder. Use it wherever. It is, as I said, available in different lengths. And you can see those lengths here. You can get up to an 1.75-inch length 6-pin or 7-pin. They can do custom lengths. 5-pin is available in a 1-inch length only. If you were doing aluminum storefront and you needed Yale GB keyway, you'd order a 7/8, and you'd make sure that you got that your cylinder collar. It's going to include the 1161 cam, and here's that Here are some dimensions. We'll look at that first, just showing you what it looks like. Then the cams are shown on the second page of the document that you'll see. 1160 what'd they say? Yeah, 1161, forgive me. 1161, obsolete cast iron mortise locks. It just happens to be a standard cam, what the industry would know as a standard cam. Other cams will look like a standard cam, like this 1160E, but it's certainly going to work in your application. And this table that's here, the second page of the cut sheet, will show you the different cams available, obviously for different lock applications. The other one that you're probably going to bump into, of course, would be the here, this one, the 1161L for Adams Rite applications. Not every Adams Rite takes this MS style cam. MS stands for maximum security, but almost practically all do, but be mindful. This is a cam disc, filler for hollow mill cams. This cam disc is intended to be installed, and it apparently is not standard equipment. Back here, remove the 2 screws, put the cam disc down, and then reattach. The roll of the cam disc prevents you from inserting a tool through the broaching of the cylinder and manipulating something behind it. That's what it's intended for. I've never heard of anyone exploiting a lock by that attack, but obviously it has happened because the hardware exists to prevent it. So if you're concerned about someone sticking something long and thin through there and moving a bolt around or whatever, be sure to order that cam disc. Now, I had mentioned the wave washer, and the cylinder collar I believe that you get with this is the 1765. Actually, I'm quite sure that it is. Okay, so this is the collar, that the trim ring or collar that came with it. You can order these in different sizes. I have many times when I've used a cylinder for an unusual application where I needed it may have only been an 1 1/4 cylinder, but I needed a 1-inch collar because I could only penetrate into what I was installing it into, a 1/4 inch, something odd like that. But then that wave washer, the KP3 I had mentioned, here it is, wave washer. And that's meant to fit inside of your 1765. So when that wave washer, and it is literally shaped, I mean, it looks like a washer, but from the end, it kind of looks like this. So that when you have the cylinder, and then your collar, your 1765 collar, and you turn that cylinder clockwise, it will flatten the wave washer to get that held tight against the face of the door. I would think they should include one. Anyway, there's a link below this video here to the manufacturer's page, and from there you can pull up not only all of the Yale products that we sell by means of this horizontal navigation as seen here, but also a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the full product catalog. Let's wrap up this video on camera. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. In conclusion, the name Yale is synonymous with hardware like this, and has been for literally 150 plus years. Okay, it was Linus Yale Jr., in fact, the son of a very, very gifted, well-respected, successful lock maker, Linus Yale. Well, Jr. he worked with his father. They were never in business together, but he learned what he learned. They were clearly, the leaf doesn't fall far from the tree in terms of talent. Linus Yale Jr. literally patented the pin tumbler cylinder. It was not his original idea. You'd have to go back 4,000 years and look at an Egyptian lock to find out where he was certainly inspired, from where he was inspired. But it's that pin tumbler lock, of which this is a pin tumbler lock, that we all use every single day, and we have for decades, and in fact a century and a half. And the pin tumbler did not really supplant the lever tumbler technology until the last quarter of the 19th century. And that lever tumbler, which is its own rabbit hole when you look at wafer or disc tumblers, lever tumbler locks, pin tumbler locks. The lever tumblers were available in the late 19th, early 20th century, but by some point in the 1920s or 30s, you were seeing cylinder locks, pin tumbler construction or platform or technology. And there are still books from the 1950s, and even today you can find old, many locks are still lever tumbler locks. In fact, very secure locks are lever tumbler locks, namely locks that guard safes. But the pin tumbler is what we really see in door hardware work, and it's because of the founder of Yale Lock, Linus Yale Jr. He had a partner. I don't, recall all of his life story. I know that he died very prematurely, unfortunately, but he had a very good partner by the name of Town. And you'll see that name. It'll be Yale and Town. And, if you're considering what lock to use, well, it's a good start when you're looking at a company who invented the technology that we all use every single day. And their catalog is quite extensive. Everything when it comes to, different lock types, exit devices, door closers, the whole 9 yards. Good group of people there, good technical support. Any questions on the Yale 1152 in a 6-pin GB keyway and a 626 finish or any other Yale product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you. Again, thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up, please subscribe, and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.